Some days, Chargers news does not arrive with a loud headline. It does not always come with breaking news alarms, dramatic reports, or a move that shakes the entire league. Sometimes, it shows up in the details, the smaller moves, the quiet names being connected behind the scenes, the roster clues that tell you what this team may actually be thinking. And today, that behind-the-scenes read points to one clear thing. Los Angeles is building speed, protection, and options before the rest of the market fully wakes up. Brennan Thompson just got a comparison that makes your imagination run. The secondary may have a veteran cornerback name worth watching. There is a bold future scenario involving a defensive star in Detroit, and the bet on Mike McDaniel is becoming clearer by the day. So subscribe, because today we are not chasing lazy headlines. We are reading the room. It starts with Brennan Thompson, and honestly, this is the kind of story I love because it is not just about a stopwatch. Yes, when a player runs a 4.26 in the 40-yard dash at the combine, every NFL room is going to pay attention. That kind of speed changes how a cornerback lines up. It changes how deep a safety feels he has to play. It even changes how aggressive a defensive coordinator wants to be. But the real behind-the-scenes point is this. When Steve Smith looks at a receiver with Thompson's size, drafted in the 4th round, and sees more than just a vertical burner, the Chargers need to listen. Smith saw the speed. Everybody sees the speed. But he also called Thompson moldable, and that word matters. For an offensive staff, moldable does not mean complete. It does not mean ready-made. It means there is real material to work with. It means there is something you can shape, develop, and place into the right role. And with Thompson, the Tyreek Hill comparison should not be treated like some wild promise that he is walking into Los Angeles and breaking the league in September. That is not the point. The point is role, threat, stress, the way a smaller, explosive, fast receiver can become a weapon that forces defenses to defend every inch of space before the ball is even snapped. And that is where Mike McDaniel becomes such an important part of the conversation. Because if there is one offensive mind who looks at speed and does not only think about deep routes, it is him. Thompson barely got used on short passes in college, under 3%, and that is almost strange when you are talking about an athlete with that kind of burst. A quick throw near the line of scrimmage, pre-snap motion, a clean touch in open space. That can turn into a simple 6-yard gain, or it can turn into complete panic at the second level. That is what makes this so interesting. Maybe Mississippi State never fully unlocked that part of his game. Los Angeles might be the place that tries. And I know some people are going to look at 5'9" and try to shrink the player before he even steps on the practice field with Justin Herbert. But wide receivers do not need to see over the line like quarterbacks. They need to understand space. They need to sell routes. They need to change angles. They need to turn fear into separation. Thompson has made it this far playing smaller than almost everybody around him. His size is not new to him. The NFL environment is. As a 4th-round pick, he is going to have to earn every single snap. Nothing is guaranteed. Ladd McConkey is there. Quentin Johnston is there. Trey Harris is there. Keandre Lambert-Smith is there. Everybody is trying to claim territory inside this offense. But that is exactly why the pick makes sense. Thompson does not have to come in as the savior. He has to become the speed button McDaniel can press at the right time. And if that button starts working, opposing defenses will have to back up half a step. And half a step, when Justin Herbert is your quarterback, is already an invitation to get punished. Now the conversation shifts from speed to roster survival. Rasul Douglas is not the kind of name that makes the whole fan base jump out of its seat the second it is mentioned. And that is exactly why he deserves attention. After the draft, when the draft looking at their depth honestly, without makeup, the cornerback room in Los Angeles still leaves you with a little concern. Tarheeb Still and Dante Jackson are listed as the main pieces. Cam Hart is in the rotation, and I like the talent in that room. I really do. But liking talent is not the same thing as pretending a full AFC season is not coming. That is where the behind-the-scenes angle gets interesting. There is no advanced visit. There is no official offer. There is no hot negotiation sitting on the table right now. But Douglas starts to make sense because his profile fits where the Chargers are at this stage of the offseason. He is on the market as an unrestricted free agent in 2026 after a 1-year deal with the Miami Dolphins, and SpotTrack projects him around $4 million for 1 season. For a team trying to fill holes without locking up the future, that is the kind of number Joe Hortiz has to at least study. And let's be honest about it, Douglas would not be coming in as the savior of the secondary. That is not the role. His value would be experience, competition, and protection against the scenario nobody wants to talk about. Injuries, wear and tear, a bad matchup, a short week, or a rival offense forcing your third corner into meaningful snaps. In this division, one mistake can turn into 6 points in a hurry. Walking into the season with thin margins outside is asking for trouble. What I like about this possibility is that it does not push the roster into desperation. This feels like a second-wave move, one of those decisions that does not dominate national headlines but can help hold a defense together in November. Harbaugh does not need a superstar in every single seat. He needs players who understand their role, accept competition, and do not look overwhelmed when the game gets tight. And there is another layer to this. Douglas has already been mentioned among the options that would make sense for the Chargers after the draft. That does not mean a move is close. It does not mean anything is imminent. But it does show that this read is not coming from nowhere. There is logic here. There is a fit here. And if Los Angeles is serious about building a deeper, more physical roster that does not depend on every single thing going perfectly, then veteran cornerback is a conversation you cannot just delay until August. To me, this is where Hortiz has to stay cold and disciplined. If the price climbs, let it go. If the market stays quiet, walk into the room. Because the Chargers do not need to win the offseason by making the loudest move. They need to reach the regular season with fewer soft spots for opponents to attack without mercy. The third story is not one you put in the urgent column, but it is also not one you ignore. Because when Detroit picks up Jahmyr Gibbs' option and, at the same time, declines Jack Campbell's, everybody around the league understands that a door is at least unlocked for 2027. Not wide open, not guaranteed, but unlocked. Campbell is coming off a ridiculous 2025 season. 176 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. That kind of production changes the entire tone of a negotiation. The Lions could still try to work out a deal during the offseason, and honestly, it would make sense if they did. But when a 25-year-old linebacker gives you that kind of volume and still does not get the 5th-year option secured, the rest of the market starts paying attention. And I get it. The Chargers are not desperate at linebacker right now. Khalil Mack came back. Akeem Mesidor arrived in the draft as a future piece. The group has talent, it has depth, it has internal paths. But there is a huge difference between having good bodies and having the kind of defender who changes the temperature of a football game. The guy who hits, flies, closes space, and makes an opposing offense feel like every snap has turned into a fight. That is why Campbell becomes a name to store away. Not to scream about today like Los Angeles is about to make an immediate move. That is not what this is. This is a name to monitor, a name to keep on the board. If Detroit cannot solve that extension, and if Campbell actually reaches the market next year, then the entire tone of the conversation changes. Because Harbaugh with that kind of defender in the middle of the defense, man, that feels like identity. There still has to be discipline. A heavy contract for Campbell would only make sense if the Chargers view him as a true defensive elevator. The kind of player with the emotional impact fans associate with monsters like TJ Watt or Max Crosby, even if he plays a different role. This cannot be about collecting big names. It has to be about paying for transformation. For now, the behind-the-scenes read is simple. Detroit has a contract situation to manage, and Los Angeles should be smart enough to watch it quietly. Sometimes, that is how a future move starts. A year early, no siren, no announcement, just one decision in another building changing the list of possibilities. And now we get to the point that might explain almost everything happening on offense. Mike McDaniel was not brought in just to decorate the room. He got here, and the Chargers started changing pieces around his vision. That is real behind-the-scenes football, because saying in a press conference that you trust your coordinator is one thing, but signing Cole Strange, drafting Jake Slaughter in the second round, adding Keaton Mitchell, Charlie Kolar, Alec Ingold, and building an offense that clearly points toward motion, outside zone, horizontal speed, and protection built for a specific system, that is something completely different. The McDaniel hire is big because it comes with a quiet promise, ending that heavy, predictable, hard-to-watch feeling the offense had at times under Greg Roman. Justin Herbert cannot live in an offense that asks him to be a hero every week without giving him easy answers. McDaniel, as an offensive mind, understands how to create space before the ball even leaves the quarterback's hand. Motion, shifts, angles, defenses having to communicate late. That is music for a quarterback with Herbert's arm and Herbert's processing. But the brave part, and the risky part, is the offensive line. Jake Slaughter was a pick that surprised a lot of people. Many analysts viewed him more like a fourth-round player, and he did not play a single snap at guard in college. That is not a small detail. When you take a player like that in the second round, you are saying you saw something the outside consensus did not value the same way. Agility, fundamentals, movement skills, the ability to fit what the coordinator wants to build. And according to Daniel Popper, this entire offseason has been a major bet on McDaniel, with him being a driving force behind the Strange signing and a central reason why the Chargers were not interested in some of the other guards on the market. That line changes the entire read. Because Slaughter is not just some isolated decision. He is part of a thread running through the whole offseason. Strange is part of it too. The offensive additions are part of it too. Los Angeles is trying to give McDaniel the exact type of pieces he believes he needs to make this offense breathe differently. And this is where I want to hear from the community. Are you buying this McDaniel bet with Slaughter and Strange inside? Or do you think the Chargers put too much faith in a vision that still has to prove everything on the field? Because I understand both sides. The optimistic side is exciting. Herbert in a modern system with speed, play action, outside zone, and targets who can win after the catch. But the skeptical side is real too. If Slaughter takes too long to become a functional guard, if Strange does not stabilize, if the protection gets shaky, this bet turns into pressure immediately. But I will defend one thing. At least now there is coherence. You can disagree with the pick. You can say it was early. You can prefer another name. But you cannot say Los Angeles is just improvising without a plan. The plan is written in the signings. It is written in the draft. It is written in the type of players they chose. McDaniel wants mobile guards. He wants pieces that can climb to the second level. He wants to multiply formations without changing the soul of the offense. The final risk is almost ironic. If this works too well, McDaniel probably starts getting head coach attention again at some point. That is the price of hiring an offensive mind of that caliber. But before worrying about that future, the Chargers need to cash in right now. And right now, this is simple. This franchise is betting that, with the right scheme, Herbert does not just have to survive. He can run an offense that creates fear. At the end of the day, what connects Thompson, Douglas, Campbell, and McDaniel is not coincidence. It is intention. The Chargers are trying to find explosion in the draft, protection in the market, future opportunity in other teams' contract decisions, and a new offensive identity inside their own building. Not everything is going to hit. No offseason works that way. But for the first time in a while, these pieces feel like they are actually talking to each other. Speed for Herbert, depth for Harbaugh, a clear plan for McDaniel, and a front office looking beyond the obvious headline. If you want to follow these behind-the-scenes moves with real Chargers energy, subscribe, hit the like button, and stay right here, because Los Angeles is not done moving.